With recent advancements in DNA-based evidence related to crime scene investigation, law enforcement officials are often more likely to get answers and catch criminals when a murder is committed. However, this technology hasn't always been readily available, and throughout history, some cases still remain unsolved. Tonight's countdown: 5 eerie unsolved murders. The Keddie Murders are an unsolved 1981 American quadruple homicide that occurred in Keddie, California. The murders took place in the infamous Cabin 28 during the late evening of April 11, 1981, and/or early morning of the 12th. The victims were Glenna Sue Sharp, age 36, her son John, age 15, and his friend Dana Wingate, age 17. At some time after the crime was discovered, Sue's daughter, Tina, age 12, was also determined to be missing. Her skull and several other bones were recovered in 1984 in Camp 18, California. Sue's oldest daughter, Sheila, had stayed next door with the neighbors in Cabin 27 that night, discovering the murders the morning of April 12th. Sue's 2 youngest sons and their friend, who were having a sleepover that night, were found uninjured in the boys' bedroom that morning. No arrests have been made in connection with the Keddie murders. Several buildings that have eventually been condemned, including residences 27 and 28, were demolished in 2004. Since August of 2007, 5 human feet have washed ashore near Vancouver, British Columbia. No bodies, no heads, and no clothes, just feet. 4 left and 1 right, nearly all still clad in sneakers. Canadian authorities have yet to determine how the feet ended up there or why, though DNA tests matched one of the severed feet to a man who'd been missing for several months. A number of theories have been tossed around, including the possibility of foul play, though coroners familiar with the case say ocean currents and decomposition could have naturally separated the feet from their owners. Others speculate that the remains might belong to 4 unrecovered victims of a 2005 plane crash off of Quadra Island. In June, a prankster spooked local authorities by planting a gruesome surprise for one unwitting beachgoer: a rotting animal paw stuffed inside an Adidas shoe. The most recent discovery was made in November, when another foot turned up in Washington less than 50 miles south of the US-Canadian border. As to why there have been so few leads, police spokesperson Charlene Brooks told CNN, "We suffer from the CSI effect. People think that we can do things faster than we can." But a Vancouver panhandler told Bloomberg News that he's already cracked the case. "I'll bet you it was a murder. You just don't find feet laying around." "1888 was a bad year to be a prostitute. Between August 7th and November 10th of that year, 5 women were killed in the Whitechapel district of London's East End, their throats slashed and their bodies mutilated in a way that indicated that they all met their fates at the hands of the same person. One victim's kidney was even mailed to police, along with a series of taunting notes written by someone calling themselves Jack the Ripper. Serial killers were a relatively new phenomenon, and the attacks were highly publicized. The law's failure to identify the killer led to such an outcry that both the Home Secretary and London Police Commissioner resigned in disgrace. The theories surrounding his identity vary from a covert Masonic plot to the member of a royal family. Hollywood's most infamous murder case unfolded on January 15, 1947, when the raven-haired 22-year-old actress Elizabeth Short was found dead on Norton Avenue between 39th and Coliseum Streets in Los Angeles. Her body had been cut in half and appeared to have been drained of blood with precision. The murderer had also cut 3-inch gashes into each corner of her mouth, creating the famous Black Dahlia's Glasgow smile. Short's murder quickly became a media sensation, not only because of its location in the showbiz capital, but also because the police worked in tandem with the press to disseminate clues in hopes of locating a suspect. Several people confessed, only to be later released for lack of evidence. Much speculation surrounded the details of Short's life. Grieving after the death of a man she fell in love with, she reportedly befriended many men while frequenting jazz clubs, making it nearly impossible to pin down who she could have been with before she died. Her unsolved murder has spawned several movies, television specials, and books. One such account was written by Steve Hodel, who implicated his own father, a Los Angeles doctor, as the Black Dahlia murderer. No charges were ever filed. A letter beginning with the sentence, "I like killing people because it's so much fun," was one of many encrypted letters sent to the San Francisco newspapers by the man who calls himself the Zodiac. For most of 1969, the killer terrorized Bay Area residents, killing 5 and possibly more. It started on December 20th, 1968, when a couple was shot to death while sitting in a car on Lover's Lane. The killer would strike several more times over the next 10 months, shooting a couple in a public park, trussing up and stabbing yet another man and woman near a peaceful lake, and shooting a cab driver in the head. An interesting aspect of the case was the way that the killer toyed with police and reporters. He reported several of the murders himself, and began to send coded letters to newspapers, using a cross within a circle as his symbol. At one point, he mailed in a piece of a bloodied shirt to prove he was who he claimed to be. Another time, he threatened to shoot up a school bus full of children. The investigations went on for years. Several suspects were considered and questioned, but no resolution was ever found. There we have it. Maybe the victims will finally have justice someday. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next week for another episode of Miss Lovely's Legends and Lore.